In the world of high-stakes Washington politics, where every move seems calculated for maximum impact, the Department of Justice under the current administration just dropped what they're calling a major development, a 2-count felony indictment against former FBI Director James Comey. During a recent press briefing, Attorney General Todd Blanche and FBI Director Kash Patel stood side by side, emphasizing that this wasn't some rushed decision. They described it as the culmination of months, 9, 10, 11 months, they said, of careful, methodical work by career investigators and prosecutors. Every threat case, they insisted, whether aimed at public officials or ordinary citizens, gets the full weight of federal resources and due process guarantees under the Constitution. The grand jury in the relevant district reviewed the facts and returned the charges, they explained, stressing that Comey would receive every legal protection the system offers. It sounded measured, professional, even routine, if you took their words at face value. For those paying close attention, the timing and the context raised immediate red flags about whether this was genuine justice or something far more personal. Let's pause and look at what actually happened here, because the details paint a picture that's hard to take seriously once you strip away the official language. Almost a full year earlier, James Comey was simply strolling along a beach when he noticed some seashells naturally arranged into the numbers 86 and 47. He snapped a quick photo, shared it on Instagram with a casual comment about the interesting formation he'd come across that morning, and moved on. No manifesto, no explicit call to action, just a snapshot of nature's odd coincidence. When law enforcement eventually questioned him, Comey cooperated fully and made clear he had zero intent to threaten anyone. In fact, he wasn't even aware that anyone could twist 86 into something sinister. That should have been the end of any reasonable inquiry. Yet here we are, with the full machinery of the DOJ and FBI mobilized for what amounts to a beachcombing photo. The absurdity becomes crystal clear when you dig just a little deeper into basic language and common sense. Anyone who has ever worked in a restaurant or glanced at old slang knows that 86 has meant, for decades, to remove something from the menu, to get rid of it, or to refuse service. Think 1930s soda counters signaling they'd run out of a particular item. It has nothing whatsoever to do with violence or harm. Comey could practically summon Merriam-Webster itself as his star witness in court because the dictionary definition doesn't even hint at a threat. Imagine the diner scenario when the kitchen yells, 86 the meatloaf. They're not plotting to assassinate the entree. They're just saying it's sold out. Applying the same twisted logic to Comey's innocent post turns a harmless seashell arrangement into some coded assassination plot, which is laugh-out-loud ridiculous on its face. Any experienced prosecutor who spent 30 years evaluating real threats knows the legal bar is high. The statement must be direct, unambiguous, and backed by clear intent to act. None of those elements exist here. This isn't careful law enforcement. It's a textbook case of bad faith, vindictive prosecution that tramples the very due process rights every American is supposed to enjoy. What's more telling is the motivation behind pushing this forward now. Investigations like this don't magically stretch across nearly a year unless there's an agenda at play. The former director's cooperation was immediate and straightforward. No deep forensic dive was required, yet officials are framing it as some epic, resource-intensive effort deserving of national attention. It's hard not to see this as a desperate bid by Attorney General Blanche to prove his loyalty and secure his position, especially after reports that previous officials may have been sidelined for not aggressively pursuing the administration's perceived opponents. The wheels of justice aren't turning here. They're spinning wildly out of control, signaling deeper dysfunction inside the Department of Justice itself. To drive the point home about how selective and inconsistent this approach really is, consider a parallel that surfaced quickly in public discussion. Back in January 2022, prominent conservative commentator Jack Posobiec posted a similar numeric reference, 86 in the context of then-President Joe Biden. Apply the exact same standard the DOJ is now using against Comey, and Posobiec's message should trigger identical scrutiny. Yet no charges ever materialized against him. That selective silence speaks volumes. It's not about consistent application of the law. It's about weaponizing it against one side while giving the other a free pass. And the right response isn't to drag Posobiec into court just to mirror the injustice that would only compound the problem. Instead, it highlights the double standard for everyone to see. When James Comey eventually stands before a judge, his legal team can simply point to that earlier post as living proof of unequal treatment, showing exactly how this administration picks and chooses its targets. Beyond the courtroom theatrics, the bigger question lingers. When the government turns its immense power against individuals in such an obvious vendetta, what real recourse does the target have? Most government officials enjoy broad protections when they act within their official roles, and that shield exists for good reason. It prevents every disappointed party from suing over routine decisions. But there's a crucial line. Once prosecutors step outside those bounds and begin manufacturing cases out of personal or political grudges, essentially turning the justice system into a tool for settling scores, lose that immunity. They become personally liable just like any other citizen who abuses authority. James Comey now has a clear path to pursue civil remedies for the harassment, the financial drain of mounting a defense, the emotional toll, and the damage to his reputation. He can seek accountability not from the government shield, but from the individuals who chose to wield power so recklessly. It's a rare but vital check against exactly this kind of overreach, reminding everyone that no one gets to hide behind a title when they're playing dirty. And here's where the long-term consequences get especially interesting for the administration itself. This kind of transparently political move doesn't happen in a vacuum. Judges aren't isolated from reality. They see the pattern emerging across multiple cases. With each new instance of selective prosecution, the bar for dismissing future efforts gets lower because evidence of a broader vendetta becomes relevant. Legal experts call it 404 BOP material, proof of other bad acts that illuminate motive and intent in the current matter. Comey's defense will almost certainly weave in examples of similar targeting, turning the government's own history against it. The case likely won't even survive early motions to dismiss. Far from advancing any agenda, moves like this backfire spectacularly. They erode public trust, invite successful countersuits, and add more names to the growing list of attorneys facing professional consequences. Think of the cautionary tales from the first Trump term, where figures like Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and Jenna Ellis paid heavy prices for bending the rules. Todd Blanche, Kash Patel, and anyone else who signed off on this indictment are now walking the same risky path, expanding what some have wryly dubbed the DISBARRED Lawyers Club. It's a self-inflicted wound that makes every subsequent prosecution look more suspect, not less. This episode reveals something profoundly troubling about the state of our institutions right now. When the machinery of justice is bent toward personal score settling rather than truth-seeking, it doesn't just harm the immediate target. It undermines the very foundation of fair play that keeps democracy stable. Continental Briefing, in the end, watching this unfold, leaves you wondering how much further the cycle of retribution will go before enough people demand a return to basic principles of fairness and restraint. Perhaps the real test ahead isn't whether one more case gets tossed out, but whether we as a nation still have the collective will to call out abuses of power no matter who holds the reins.